I came home without warning and heard my sister screaming behind a locked door. When I got inside, she was curled up, trembling, her shirt torn. My stepdad stood there unfazed. My MOM whispered, she said she slipped. That's when I dialed 911. It's a terrifying thing to realize the monsters aren't under your bed, but living inside your home. What's even worse, when the people you love most, your own family, actively choose not to see them. I walked back into my childhood house, and within moments my whole world shattered because I heard my sister scream from behind a locked door, and I knew, deep down, this wasn't just a bad night, but the rotten core of years of silence and betrayal. I hadn't planned on going home that day. Honestly, I didn't tell anyone I was coming back. After months of calls ignored and texts unread, I figured just showing up would speak volumes. Part of me, though, just wanted to see what or who I'd been replaced with. My Uber dropped me a few blocks from the house. I asked the driver to turn off the music. I needed the quiet, that sharp autumn air, before I walked back into whatever this was. The porch light was on, which surprised me. Mom never left it on before dark. I stood there, watching shadows flicker and laughter spill from the windows, feeling the strange, heavy silence behind the front door. I still had my old key. I turned it slowly in the lock, and the click echoed far too loud. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Garlic bread, something cheesy. Then the voices, low murmurs, Tom's deep, throaty laugh, the sound of a man trying too hard to be charming. When I stepped inside, no one even turned. The dining table was full, Mom, her back to me, Tom holding Court the head, Isola, my younger sister, quiet beside him, and some man I didn't recognize. Plates piled high, glasses clinking, jokes passing around like dessert. No one looked up, not even when I dropped my bag. Finally, Mom turned. "Jayla," she said, her voice not surprised, just confused, like I'd ruined something. "We didn't think you'd come today." She reached for her water glass, as if that would make this awkward, agonizing moment normal. I scanned the table. For chairs, no fifth, not even a folded napkin. There was literally no seat for me. I stood there, one hand still on my backpack strap, feeling my cheeks burn. "It's fine," I mumbled, trying to sound casual. "I'll just grab something later." Tom flashed that smile, the one that made my stomach twist. "We can pull up a stool, sweetheart. No big deal." "No, I'm good," I said, probably too quickly. Isola still hadn't looked up. I retreated to the kitchen, pretending to dig through the fridge. I didn't need anything. I just couldn't stand in that doorway another second. I heard Mom whisper something to Tom, and he chuckled low and loud. "She always had a flair for timing, huh?" he said, not bothering to lower his voice. It hit me then, a sharp slap to the face. I was an outsider in my own home. I watched them from the kitchen, feeling like I was seeing a family movie I'd been cut out of. Mom touched Tom's hand. Isola barely ate, just pushed her food around. Everyone else looked so comfortable. When they started cleaning up, I went upstairs. My room, or what used to be, looked alien. My purple curtains gone. My pictures gone. In their place, beige drapes and neutral rug, and a made bed that didn't smell like me anymore. The closet was half filled with storage bins, a treadmill leaning against the wall. None of it was mine. I sat on the bed, my eyes searching for anything familiar. On the bookshelf, a small metallic lint. A necklace. I moved closer. It was the one I'd made for Isola last year. Beads threaded by hand, a charm that said "Sisters always." I remembered wrapping it, writing a note. She was wearing it tonight, but she had thanked Tom for it. He'd regifted it, or taken credit. I wasn't sure which felt worse. I held it for a moment, then placed it back exactly where I found it. What was the point of saying anything? Who would believe me? Who would even care? I curled into the corner of the bed, the part that still felt somewhat mine. My phone buzzed with texts from old classmates, but nothing from Mom, nothing from Isola. I opened a message to my friend Marcy and typed, "What if you come home and realize it's not your home anymore?" I didn't hit send. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how something could hurt so much and still feel so quiet. It was just after 8. The house had quieted, only the dishwasher humming downstairs. I needed to move, needed to see something, anything that reminded me I wasn't a ghost. I left my room and found myself in the hall, right outside Isola's door. Her light was on. I tapped gently. No answer. The door creaked open on its own. She hadn't shut it all the way. She stood at her dresser, untying her ponytail, lotion in her other hand. Her eyes flicked to mine for a second, then dropped back to the mirror. "Hey," I tried, my voice casual. "You okay?" Her movements slowed. "Just tired." The words were soft, flat, too rehearsed. I didn't buy it. Not for a second. "You sure?" I pressed, stepping closer. "I mean, last year you were texting me all the time. Now I'm back, and it's like you're not even here." Isola finally turned, her arms crossed over her stomach like she was holding herself together. "It's been a long day, Jay." Jay. She only called me that when she was trying to end a conversation. I nodded, fighting the urge to push. That's when the air shifted. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Tom rounded the corner, a mug in his hand, that same half-smile. "Girls, everything all right?" he asked, light, almost amused. Then, with casual ease, he placed a hand on Isola's shoulder. "Chit-chat later, 'kay? Isola needs to help me review some student essays." His hand didn't linger, but it was enough. Isola stiffened beneath it. Just for a second, but it wasn't subtle. Not to me. She didn't look up. She didn't speak. I didn't say a word either, but I saw it. Tom led her down the hall like a man guiding a marionette. Isola's eyes never met mine again. I stood alone in that hallway, heart heavier than my chest could hold. Back in my room, in the dark, something about her reaction to his touch brought back a memory I'd buried. Just over a year ago, I'd found Isola crying in the laundry room. "You should just go," she told me. "You always get to leave." A few days later, Tom told Mom I needed structure, that my attitude had shifted. 3 days after that, a boarding school brochure arrived. And just like that, I was gone. Now, lying in this stranger's version of my old room, I wondered, was I sent away because I asked the wrong question at the wrong time? My phone buzzed a college update. I didn't open it. I pulled the comforter around me, trying to settle my breathing, listening to the quiet outside my door. It wasn't silent. Muffled sounds, a soft bump, murmuring, then nothing. A thick, heavy quiet, like the air had turned to syrup. I typed a text to Isola. "You good?" No response. My phone flickered as someone moved past in the hall. Then quiet again. My chest tightened. This wasn't just tiredness. This wasn't just homework. This wasn't just me overthinking. This was fear. Real, breathing right outside my door. I pulled the comforter tighter, my heart drumming. The realization settled. I hadn't just come home to visit. I'd walked into a house full of people pretending everything was fine, while something inside these walls was deeply, horribly wrong. 2 nights later, I was still wide awake, staring at that ceiling fan. It had become the only constant, the only movement in this house that felt peaceful. This was the sort of quiet that had something to hide. I sat up. 12:16 a.m. The memory of Isola flinching under Tom's hand wouldn't leave me alone. Every part of me knew something was off. I shifted, trying to ease the tension, but it only made me listen harder. To the walls, to the floorboards. Then I heard it. A noise. Short, sharp, muffled. Not loud, but unmistakably human. My heart jumped. Then, a sound that shattered whatever normalcy was left. An abrupt, cut-off scream. It wasn't cinematic. It was low, guttural, like someone trying not to scream, but unable to hold back the pain. I threw off the blanket and ran to the hallway. Tom's door was closed, light bleeding from underneath, flickering like someone was pacing inside. I knocked hard. "Isola." No answer. I knocked again, louder. "Isola, it's me." Silence. I tried the doorknob. Locked. I didn't think. I just started pounding. "Open the door, Tom. Open this door right now." Something thudded against the wall. Then another sound, softer, like crying. That's when I stopped pounding and grabbed my phone. My fingers trembled, so bad I hit the emergency call, screened twice. 911, what's your emergency? "My name is Jayla Maddox. I think my sister's being hurt by my stepdad. Please, just send someone. It's urgent." I gave the address. "Is anyone in immediate danger?" "Yes," I choked out. "I think she is. Please just get here." I hung up and pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. Seconds stretched into minutes. The silence came back, mocking me. Then sirens. A far-off echo getting closer. My knees buckled in relief. But I didn't step away. I stayed there, guarding that door like it held everything I didn't know how to name. The front door downstairs opened. Voices called out. Footsteps rushed up. Then Tom opened the door. He looked utterly composed, shirt tucked in, hair slightly mussed but not suspiciously, just mildly concerned, like someone inconvenienced. "Is everything okay, sweetie?" he asked, as if I was the one overreacting. Behind him, Isola sat on the floor, legs drawn to her chest. Her face was blotchy, eyes red. Her sweater, torn at the neckline, hung off one shoulder. She didn't speak, didn't move. 2 officers stepped past Tom before he could say another word. "Sir, step back, please." Tom complied, hands raised, his best model citizen impression. A female officer knelt beside Isola. "Are you all right, honey?" Isola's lips moved, but her voice was a whisper. The second officer pulled Tom aside, and he began his usual routine. Calm, polished, sympathetic. I knew it. I recognized it from how he spoke to neighbors, teachers, even Mom. They brought Isola downstairs. A paramedic wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Another guided her outside. She didn't look back. I followed, stopping at the threshold. I didn't want Tom behind me. He stepped up, and with the nerve of a man who'd rehearsed his innocence 1,000 times, he said, "You made quite the scene, Isola. Are you sure this is the kind of attention you want?" I turned to him. My voice didn't shake. "You're not going to get away with this." He smiled. "You think they haven't tried this before?" Then he walked away, cool as ever, to give his statement. Inside, the living room was still. Mom sat on the couch, arms crossed tightly. She hadn't spoken a word since the cops arrived. I waited for her to say something. Anything. Finally, she stood. "This is a mess," she muttered, heading for the stairs. "That's all you have to say?" I asked, incredulous. "Your daughter was crying on the floor." "She said she slipped," Mom snapped. "And maybe if you hadn't been so dramatic," I cut her off. "She didn't slip, Mom." She turned. She flinched when he touched her. She thanked him for a necklace I gave her. She looked terrified. Mom just shook her head. "You've been gone a long time, Jayla. You don't know what this family's been through." She walked away. I spent the rest of the night pacing, replaying the scream, the click of the lock, the look in Isola's eyes. At 4 a.m., a soft knock on my door. Isola stood there in pajamas, eyes still raw. Her voice cracked. "Why now, Jayla?" I didn't know what to say. She looked at me like she was asking for permission to be angry. "Why didn't you come home sooner?" I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. Her brittle words hung between us like a cracked mirror. She stood for a few more seconds, then turned and walked back to her room, closing the door without a sound. By morning, the air in the house was heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I went downstairs and found the kitchen already alive with the scent of eggs and toast. Mom stood at the stove, humming, like it was any other morning, like last night hadn't just happened. Tom wasn't there. Isola's door remained closed. Mom didn't look at me. "Coffee's fresh." She pointed to the counter. I poured a cup, my hand steady out of sheer spite. "He's not here." "No," she said, flipping a pancake. "He went to the station this morning to give a statement. Voluntarily." I leaned against the fridge. "They had a reason to show up, Mom. You heard her. You saw her face." Mom turned, spatula in hand, her eyes sharp and cold. "What I saw was you banging on a locked door in the middle of the night, accusing your stepfather of God knows what, in front of the neighbors and 2 police officers. You embarrassed us." "Embarrassed us?" I nearly choked on the words. She was on the floor, shaking. Her shirt was torn. "That's not a misunderstanding." She said she slipped. "No," I said, my voice rising. "That's what he told her to say, and you're eating it up like it's gospel." Mom stared at me, jaw tight. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You're trying to destroy this family." The sentence hit me like a slap. "No," I shook my head slowly. "He already did that. I'm just the one who finally called it out." She just turned back to the stove. An hour later, Officer Quinn called, asking me to give a formal statement. They'd already spoken to Tom and Mom. I didn't ask if Isola had gone. I didn't need to. The drive to the station felt like floating through fog. Inside, the officer took my report with a calm professionalism that didn't match the chaos inside me. I told them everything. What I saw, what I heard, what Isola whispered. She handed me a tissue I hadn't asked for. In the lobby, I saw Tom talking to another officer, back straight, hands folded, friendly, like he was at a PDA meeting. I knew his version. My stepdaughter has a history of emotional instability. She's always been dramatic. And they'd nod. And maybe, just maybe, some of them would believe him. I returned home to a house that no longer pretended. Mom sat in the living room, eyes glued to a talk show, loud enough to drown out conversation. I passed her without speaking. Upstairs, my room was still sterile. My suitcase, unpacked, sat by the bed. Mom knocked once, then opened the door. You should have asked before coming back. I turned. Excuse me. This is my house, Jayla. You can't just barge in after all this time. Stir everything up, then expect us to what? Start over. I stood. You're right. It is your house. But don't pretend like I left because I wanted to. You're twisting everything, she said. No, I countered. I'm finally seeing it straight. She left without closing the door. Later, I opened my journal, mostly empty pages. I wrote in bold, clear letters. They want me to disappear, but I won't. Downstairs, the door opened. Tom was back. I waited, then went down. He stood by the counter, a glass of water in his hand, like it was his kitchen. And I was just visiting. You think this is over? He asked, not turning. I didn't answer. He turned, smirking. You're playing a dangerous game, Jayla. Be careful who you cross. I stepped closer. You can fool her. You won't fool me. He leaned in, his smile colder than I'd ever seen. You'll regret this, little girl. I met his eyes. Not as much as you will. He walked away, as if he hadn't just threatened me in my own kitchen. I didn't flinch. Not while he was looking. But I felt it later, a heavy weight in my stomach, an ache in my hands, long after I'd curled them into fists and let them go. 2 days passed. The house was thick with unspoken tension. Isola's door remained sealed. I left notes under it. I'm here. I'm sorry. Are you okay? None came back. The third day, while doing laundry, I noticed her bed was uncharacteristically rumpled, like she hadn't moved. Standing at her doorway, I saw the corner of something poking from under her mattress. A tiny edge of a worn spiral notebook. It looked like her old middle school journal, full of bad poems and shadowy drawings. I hesitated, then reached for it. The first few pages were torn out. The next ones were covered in frantic writing, scribbled over, half-finished. But one entry caught me. Asterisk night locked. Couldn't breathe. He said not to tell, told me to pretend. Asterisk the words blurred, smudged like tears had hit the page. My hands trembled as I closed it. I held it for a few seconds, then carried it back to my room. I placed it beside the necklace, the one Tom took credit for. That necklace had become like an altar, a place for all the things I wasn't ready to say out loud. Later that day, I brought the notebook to Officer Quinn. I found this in my sister's room, I said, handing it over. I don't think she meant for me to see it, but I couldn't ignore it. Quinn nodded, flipping through the pages. Her face stayed calm, but her knuckles tightened around the spine. I appreciate you bringing this, she said. We'll log it as evidence. She paused. We also recovered the camera you discussed, the one Tom installed in the hallway, supposedly for security. My breath caught, and footage was wiped. Hard reset. Could be a malfunction, but we're treating it as intentional. I swallowed the taste of defeat. So what now? We build a case, she said. Without that footage, it's harder, but not impossible. That evening, I felt a shift at school. Not everyone knew, but some did. Counselors, teachers. Word travels fast. During fourth period, Miss Finch, a new, awkward counselor, pulled me aside. She smiled in that overly cautious way. I just wanted to check in, Jayla. We've noticed you seem withdrawn. Is everything okay at home? I gave her a look. Define okay. She cleared her throat. Your stepfather, he reached out. Expressed concern. Did he? I said, already knowing. Yes. He said you've been struggling since coming back. That maybe you were reacting to unresolved grief. Your father, my jaw locked. Don't talk about him. She blinked. Sorry, I didn't mean, I stood up. I'm fine. You don't have to go through this alone. I turned at the door. I already am. Later that night, sitting on the edge of my bed, I thought about how the system protects people like Tom. People who smile right, dress right, speak like they're always in control. People who know exactly how far they can push and still get away with it. I knew it wouldn't end here. I checked Isola's door, still closed. I took a sticky note and wrote carefully, *, you don't have to talk. Just listen. I believe you, and I'm not leaving. *, I slipped it under her door and went back to my room, back to the notebook, back to the necklace, back to the place where hope and fury coexisted. A week slid by, thick with tension. I woke to silence, moved through the house like an unwelcome guest, slept in a room that still wasn't mine. But I stayed. I needed to be a presence. The note under Isola's door remained untouched, but I left another the next day and the day after that. At school, the whispers grew. Eyes watching. People thought they knew something. Then, the guidance counselor called me in. Miss Riston, late 40s, with a voice that sounded like she was always apologizing for existing. Jayla, honey, do you have a minute? I sat across from her. The blinds were drawn. It felt like an invitation into a conversation where the outcome was already decided. Sometimes when we feel unsupported, she began, it's easy to project our discomfort onto those around us, even those who care deeply. My jaw tightened. You think I made this up? No, that's not what I'm saying. But that's exactly what you're saying. I'm saying trauma can look different in different people. Maybe what you're experiencing isn't exactly what's happening. Emotions are powerful. I didn't hallucinate the police showing up at my house. I snapped. I didn't imagine my sister crying in a corner. Miss Riston shifted, still wearing that patient look that made me want to break something. We're just trying to make sure you're supported and that you're not letting personal grief cloud your perception. Personal grief, she meant my dad. I stood up. I'm good. Thanks. I walked out, shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so hot it made my fingers go numb. That night, the rumors exploded. An anonymous blog post popped up, accusing me of being an attention seeker, a chaos creator. It twisted moments from my past, arguments with teachers, slapping a kid for making fun of Isola in 8th grade. No context, just ammunition. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop and hit record. No rehearsal, no script. I looked directly into the camera. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to speak because no one else is. I talked about silence, about how abuse hides not in screaming, but in quiet glances, in the way people flinch, in the way girls are taught not to cause a scene. I didn't name names. I ended with a question. If no one listens, will you still speak? I uploaded it anonymously. No tags, no identifiers. Just truth. The next morning, it had 50 views. That night, 300. By the weekend, over 1,000. The comments started slow. * my sister went through this too. I didn't say anything when I should have. I'm sorry. I believe you. * that Monday, I brought Isola's notebook to Miss Cartwright, my old English teacher. The one who taught me that words, placed right, could tear down walls. She flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning the smeared ink. Then she looked at me with a sadness that didn't belong in someone who once called herself a protector. I'm sorry, she said. It's just not enough. These are incomplete thoughts. There's no context. It wouldn't hold up as anything more than personal reflection. I stared at her. She wrote, he said not to tell. What more do you need? She shook her head. It's not about what I need. It's about what's admissible. I left more disappointed than surprised. That night, a text from Officer Quinn. Don't stop. The more you speak, the more cracks you make. Somehow, that meant more than any teacher's apology. I scrolled through the video comments again. One caught my eye. * he's done this before. You're not crazy. Check Oak Ridge Middle, 2015. * it came from a private profile. No name, no picture. I read it 3 times. If what that message said was true, this wasn't just about me or even just about Isola. It was bigger, deeper. And I wasn't going to stop now. After reading that comment, check Oak Ridge Middle 2015, I didn't sleep. I spent most of that night curled on the edge of my bed, laptop light burning into my eyes, my heart trying to stay steady against a rising tide of rage. Morning came, like it was trying to apologize for what the night uncovered. I didn't wait for breakfast. I opened my laptop, this time with a clear direction. I started digging. Oak Ridge Middle had a community page. Old newsletters, the kind of bureaucratic fluff no one ever reads. But hidden in the November 2015 bulletin, a quiet line under staff transition. Mr. Tom Maddox will be departing Oak Ridge to pursue new opportunities closer to home. We thank him for his service. Alone, not a red flag. But the timing. I opened another tab. Local parent forums, archive threads, even the school's Yelp page. That's where I found it. A comment from a parent, 2 days before the newsletter. Asterisk, my daughter's uncomfortable around her science teacher. Says he makes weird jokes and stands too close. Other girls have said the same. Not sure what to do. He's so well liked. Asterisk, I click deeper. Weeks later. Asterisk, teacher gone. No investigation. Just gone. Asterisk, my hands curled into fists. It wasn't just us. That afternoon an email. From Caden Rowe. Subject. I should have said something then. Inside. Asterisk, I was at Oak Ridge in 2015. One of Tom's tutoring kids. I saw Isola once. She was crying in the hall after a meeting with him. I didn't ask. I didn't want to get involved. That silence helped him. I won't be silent again. Asterisk, I stared at those words, letting them wash over me. I messaged him back. We agreed to talk. The next day, I didn't have to pull a single word out of him. He confessed everything he remembered. The way Tom complimented girls on their mature posture. The subtle touches, the inappropriate jokes. Back then, he told me, I thought if no one else was saying anything, maybe I was overreacting. Now I know that's what he counts on. That night at dinner, I tried to bring it up to Mom. I found something, I said, pushing my plate away. She didn't look up from her phone. About Oak Ridge Middle, I continued. Back in 2015, there were girls. He left quietly. Her fingers stopped moving. She looked at me, for the first time all week. You've been snooping again. I'm not snooping. I'm connecting dots you refuse to see. She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. You are digging for drama, Jayla. You don't care about this family. You never have. You just want to burn everything down so you can feel important. I stood too, slower. You're mad because I'm doing what you should have done. Protected her. Her mouth opened to argue, then closed. Behind me, Tom stepped into the room. You're making enemies you can't see, he said, his voice smooth. Good, I shot back. Let them come into the light. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The next day, I requested to speak at the school board meeting. It was virtual, streaming live. I told them I had information concerning a former educator who now worked in the district. They granted me 5 minutes. I spent the day preparing, printing screenshots of the Oak Ridge comments, Caden's statement, the staff bulletin. My words weren't scripted, but they were solid. When my turn came, my heart beat in my ears, but I knew I had to stay steady. My name is Jayla Maddox, I began. I'm a student at Fort Collins High School, and I have something to share about a man who should not be near children. I was 3 minutes in, just about to bring up the Oak Ridge parent forums, when the screen went black. The stream froze. On my end, everything looked fine, but on my phone the YouTube link was down. Video unavailable. I refreshed. Nothing. My connection to the meeting platform dropped completely. My phone lit up with texts. Asterisk, did it cut out? Was that intentional? Jayla, you okay? Asterisk, I stared at the screen. My hands gone cold. 10 minutes later, Officer Quinn called. I saw what happened, she said. Your stream was tampered with. By who? We don't know yet, but we may have something else. I sat down, pressing the phone to my ear. You remember that smart speaker in your living room? She said. Yeah, it uploads backups. My breath caught. We found audio. It was a gray morning, the kind that hangs low over the city like a warning. We arrived at the courthouse just after 8. Isola sat beside me in Officer Quinn's car, hands tucked under her thighs, eyes locked on the blur outside. She hadn't said a word. Neither had I. We found audio. Those words echoed. Quinn had told me the smart speaker, a Black Friday purchase, had been auto-saving short clips to cloud storage. One of those clips captured a piece of what happened that night. Not everything, but enough. Inside, everything smelled sterile, coffee dust worry. It clung to the walls. A bailiff led us to a holding room. Are you ready? I whispered to Isola. She didn't look at me, just nodded. 20 minutes later, the door opened. We were called into the courtroom. I thought I'd feel nervous or sick. But when I walked down the aisle and saw Tom in his pale gray suit, calm as ever, I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. He turned, caught my gaze, and smiled like none of this was real, like I was a child playing courtroom. The prosecutor introduced the evidence. Then Officer Quinn presented the audio. A bailiff pressed play. It started with muffled movement, furniture creaking, a thump. Then his voice. You'll shut your mouth if you know what's good for you. Silence. Then Isola's voice, small, cracked, broken. Please stop. The courtroom went still. No papers shuffled. No whispers. Even the judge leaned forward. The audio ended. Tom didn't move. Quinn stepped back. I turned to Isola. She was staring down at her lap, her hands trembling. Slowly she stood. Ms. Maddox, the judge said, you may speak. She stepped toward the center. Her voice quiet at first. He said no one would believe me. She glanced at Tom, then at Mom, who sat 2 rows back, frozen. He said I was imagining things, that it was my fault when he came into my room, that if I said anything, I'd be responsible for tearing the family apart. She paused, swallowing, her chin lifting. But Jayla believed me. She was the only one who did, and that saved my life. For the first time, she looked at me, her eyes full of pain, but also something steadier, something healing. She believed me first. The judge gave a brief nod, then turned to the prosecution. Mom stood. Her hands shook as she spoke. I chose comfort over truth, she said. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe my home could be poisoned from the inside. And because of that, my daughter suffered. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Then, without prompting, she walked to the clerk and handed over a document. I didn't need to read it to know what it was. Divorce papers. When the judge read the sentence, his voice was steady. Thomas Maddox, you are hereby sentenced to 35 years in prison. You will not be eligible for parole for 20. Tom stood still as the bailiff approached. His expression didn't change, not even when the cuffs clicked shut. As he was led past us, he looked at me one last time. No words, just that same quiet, smug smirk he wore the first day he met us. But this time I didn't look away. Outside, reporters crowded the steps. Microphones, cameras, questions. Isola stepped forward before they could speak. My name is Isola Maddox, she said, loud enough for the cameras, steady, strong. But from today forward, I choose to be Isola Hart. After my father. And this, she reached for my hand, gripping it tightly. This is the only family I trust. They tried to ask more, but she didn't give them time. We walked down the steps together, shoulder to shoulder. That evening, back at the house, Mom moved slowly through the living room, clearing out anything of Tom's. Trophies, certificates, framed awards. The last to go was the wedding photo. She hesitated, then dropped it into a cardboard box and taped it shut. I should have known, she said softly. I think part of me did, but knowing and admitting aren't the same. I said nothing, just let her speak. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to fix what I broke. You don't have to fix it alone, I said. We sat in silence, the soft buzz of the heater humming. The worst was over, but the weight of what we'd survived would take longer to leave. Still, it was a start. The press conference ended before noon, but it was well past dusk by the time we finally made it home. Home was a stretch, not in the sentimental sense, but in the physical one. Our new place was barely more than a second-floor rental above a worn-out dental office. The waiting room chairs below creaked louder than our apartment heater. The blinds didn't fully close, and the linoleum near the sink peeled in a corner. But the rent was affordable, and for the first time in what felt like years, the quiet didn't feel like something to fear. It had been a month since the verdict. A month since the courtroom walls bore witness to truths too long buried. A month since the world finally stopped pretending not to see. Since names were spoken out loud that had lived in whispers. Since I stood at a microphone with trembling hands and a steady voice and said what needed saying. And now here we were, still standing, The days since then passed in the kind of fragile rhythm that defines early recovery. Some days felt like progress, bright, still promising. Others were jagged, brittle, prone to crumbling at the slightest reminder of the past. But even then, the pieces of our lives were settling into place. Maybe not neatly, and definitely not without cracks. But still they were settling. One breath, one step at a time. Inside the apartment, Mom moved in the kitchen, not rushing, not pacing, not trying to outrun a nervous system on fire. She moved like a person who finally had room to slow down. She placed 3 mismatched mugs on the table, all filled with that cheap, syrupy hot chocolate mix she used to keep in bulk when Isola and I were little. We used to beg for it in winter, pretending it was a magic potion that made snow fall faster. Back when winter still meant something magical. Back before everything fractured. Tonight, there were no illusions, no forced smiles, no pretending. For once, we didn't need to. On the wall above the couch, I'd hung a small wooden frame. Inside, a note from Dad. Not a polished message, but one of his offhand thoughts, scrawled on lined paper in blue ink. Asterisk, you see what others won't. Never forget that. Asterisk, he wrote it when I was 10, after I told him I saw our neighbor kick his dog when no one else was watching. Everyone else had dismissed it. Asterisk, maybe the dog was being aggressive. You probably misunderstood. Asterisk, but not Dad. He believed me without question, and that belief became a seed I carried, even when everything else had been stripped away. Isola sat beside me on the floor, her back against the couch, legs curled up beneath her like she used to when we were kids watching late-night cartoons. She hadn't said much since court, but she was here. Every day, with her presence, her silence, her stillness. And that was enough. Mom dried her hands on a dish towel and, out of nowhere, said, "We should get a tree." Isola opened one eye. "You hate trees." I hated his trees, Mom clarified. Those plastic ones with color-coded branches and lights that always blinked at different speeds. They looked like department store displays. No soul. She paused. I miss the real ones. The smell, the mess, the frustration of untangling lights. "I can get one," I offered. "It's already mid-December." So she shrugged. "It's not about the calendar anymore. We didn't get the tree that night. We didn't bake sugar cookies or hang ornaments. No festive garland or holiday movie marathons. But we lit a candle. We put on an old record, something scratchy and slow that filled the space with warmth. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. A holiday with no glitter, no guests, no expectations, but full of presents. And somehow it was more than enough. A few nights later, winter settled deeper. The air turned brittle, laced with the faint smell of wood smoke and pine. I woke at 3 a.m., not from fear, but from a quietness that no breath could quite fix. I crept into the kitchen for water. The floor was cold. Isola's door was closed and locked. She always locked it, not because she was afraid of us anymore. It wasn't fear. It was routine, a way of claiming control, of creating a boundary. I respected it. In the living room, Mom slept on the couch, curled up like a question mark, her face streaked with dried tears. She didn't know I was there, and I didn't wake her. I just stood there for a moment, letting the stillness wrap around us both. Then I went back to bed. Healing isn't a straight line. Everyone says that, but few understand what it really means. It means some days are steady, others sting. It means feeling joy, then guilt for the joy. It means crying in the shower even after the court date is over. It means laughing at a meme and wondering if you're allowed to feel light again. It means watching someone else sleep through their pain and knowing you can't take it away. The next morning, an email from Caden. Subject blank. Inside. Asterisk Jayla, I watched the press conference. I know I never said this before, but thank you for being louder than my fear. You didn't just help your sister. You helped me find my voice, too. I joined a local survivor group. I've started speaking to students. Small stuff, but it matters. One kid asked me if people will ever stop blaming victims. I told him the truth. Not always, but someone has to speak anyway. You reminded me that it counts. It always counts. Asterisk, I didn't cry. I didn't need to. That message was the kind of breath you don't realize you've been holding until it finally leaves you. It didn't erase the past, but it marked something new, something forward. A few days later, I walked to the community center and signed up to volunteer for their winter clothing drive. Just a few hours a week, nothing major. The sign-up sheet asked for an emergency contact. I paused. Then, for the first time in years, I didn't hesitate. I wrote, Isola Heart. And underneath, without thinking, almost instinctively, I added, Sibling of Isola Heart. 2 simple lines, just ink on a form, but to me it meant everything. We weren't healed. We weren't fixed. Life hadn't snapped back like a rubber band to the way it used to be. But we weren't surviving anymore either. We were living together. And for now, that was enough. Sometimes, the most brutal truths are buried not in forgotten places, but right inside our own homes, masked by routine, hidden by silence, and willfully ignored by the very people we expect to protect us. This isn't just a story about justice. It's about the relentless, agonizing fight to make the invisible seen, to give a voice to the voiceless, and to heal a family fractured by deceit. It's about learning to speak even when your words are met with denial, and to stand firm when the world tries to silence you. Have you ever felt like you were the only one seeing the ugly truth when everyone else chose comfortable blindness? Share your thoughts below. And if this story resonated with you, if it sparked a flicker of recognition or courage, please consider subscribing. Because every voice, every story matters.